Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about Cross Slash. Cross Slash is an interesting ability. It's actually really powerful, and I think if you utilize it correctly, even as a support ability, believe it or not, I think you'll really enjoy it. Let's talk about it together, and then we'll talk about what you can potentially, how you can get the most out of it on your character. So Cross Slash is an attack. It is a Shapeshift Werewolf AoE melee. It does have a really high mana cost of 112. It actually gets even higher once you start putting support gems in it, so it's not something that you really want to spam. But maybe you could set up a spamming build for it. Shapeshift into a werewolf and leap backwards as you gouge the ground with both claws. Enemies can be hit separately by both gouges. Hitting a marked enemy with both gouges will activate the mark and cause an additional shockwave. Now, this is really cool, because up until this point, if you had a mark, and there's a bunch of marks. Let's take a look at the marks real quick. Let me grab a gem, and we're just going to go to all gems, and we're going to type in mark. There is the Bloodhound's mark, which when you fulfill the requirements of the Bloodhound mark, it triggers an explosion. So basically you get a blood explosion, which is this. For the Voltaic mark, when the mark is triggered, the mark activates, granting a buff, which gives extra lightning damage. So you get a 30% gained as extra lightning damage, which is really good. The freezing mark gets a 30% buff gain as cold damage. And the sniper's mark will generate you a frenzy charge, right? So there's a lot of different marks that you can use in the game that you can then fulfill with Cross Slash. So depending on your build and how you want to set it up, you can of course be spamming a mark, and then once you spam the mark, you can fulfill the mark. And there's even a mark built into the werewolf tree, which is Pounce. Pounce actually has its own mark built in, which is Summon Wolf. It's a Summon Wolf mark. This is a skill triggered when Predator's mark activates to summon a wolf minion that as long as it lives. So basically, you can also use it to fulfill the Pounce mark. Pounce is also a very effective way of applying the mark if you want to apply it in a more effective way. So you can use Pounce to apply the mark, and then you can use Cross Slash to pull the mark, which can give you your buffs. It's actually really, really good. Now, on top of this, Cross Slash also has other effects. So it it also causes bink. It also causes all of the ice fragments to be pulled into the location where the gouge cross explodes, and they explode immediately. This skill can be used while other skills to interrupt them. So basically, this ability works in a support fashion for a lot of other abilities. Number one, it works as a support ability for marks, allowing you to pull the marks and apply those marks to your character or get whatever the buff is for the fulfilling the conditions of the mark. Since you don't actually have to fulfill the conditions of the mark with Cross Slash, you only have to Cross Slash. You can essentially get the buff for free, right? The other thing is the ice fragments. So in this on this character specifically, but there are other ice fragments that I think would potentially work with this. But Shred generates ice fragments whenever you're attacking a frozen target. The ice fragments can build up, and you can get a rather large amount of ice fragments. And then once you get those ice fragments, you can then pull them and cause them all to explode with Cross Slash. It's actually pretty effective. Let me go into a map real quick, and I'll see if I can show you what it looks like. Why am I missing my most basic doojank? Is just missing from my bar. Did I just get a divine orb from a random trash pile? I think I did. I think I took it off because I was doing a video at some point. Yeah, Shred. Alright, so when you freeze a target, and then you hit them, you get these ice fragments that appear on the ground. You see them explode. And if you are to freeze, like for instance, a higher level monster, and start attacking them, and then you cross slash, it causes all of the ice fragments to explode on the target in sequence, which is really cool. Another thing is if you pounce on a target and then cross slash, you can get the buff where you get the extra damage as cold. You can see I have the freezing mark gaining extra damage as cold damage, essentially just for free, right? And this can be done anytime you want to, right? So you pounce into a group, boom, and then you cross slash and you instantly get the buff, giving you tons and tons of damage. Now, cross slash is not really meant to be a main ability, but it does work surprisingly well for what it is, which is a support ability. It is a support for shred, it's a support for marks, it's a support for your entire character, basically. You can utilize it with minion builds to get more minions with Pounce, or you can utilize it with the sniper's mark to get more frenzy charges. Now, what would you potentially utilize with cross slash to make it more effective? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can potentially go here. One thing that I would probably recommend with cross slash is the efficiency, just to reduce the damage. Let me go over to a character that I believe was already set up for cross slash, and I actually have some points in the abilities. So in this particular character, I'm using Raged Forge because I'm spending rage on it to get more damage, which actually does kind of work pretty well with this. I'm also using Close Combat for more damage, and I'm using Maim for basically the support. Nothing really like crazy there. I'm pretty sure if I grab a support gem real quick. Cross Slash is an AoE effect, and you do want to hit with both of the gouges. So something like Magnified Area might actually be okay. Making the gouges larger so that you have a much higher chance of hitting the same target with both gouges. You could also potentially utilize it for any other number of things like breaking armor. Cold Attunement might be good for the ability too, because it is set around freezing targets. The Shockwave that comes out is the flinging of the ice fragments within 7 meters, so you get basically all the ice fragments coming out. You can, of course, get more ice fragments if you use the... I believe it's the increased skill duration. There's actually a couple different things you can potentially do with the ice fragments. It's kind of hard to like talk about them, though, with Cross Slash. Although Cross Slash is useful with those things, it's not necessarily support gems for cross slash, is it? But skill effect duration, I'm trying to remember exactly which one actually works on shred. I'm using Long Fuse, yeah. So Long Fuse helps with the fragments by making them not explode, but they do more damage. This means that you can utilize them with the cross slash better. Cross slash is a way to basically take all those fragments and focus them on a target. And if you can get more of them on the screen at any given time, then when you go to pull them with cross slash, you'll have more explosions, which will do overall more damage. It also increases the damage of the detonations of the actual ability as well. So if you take a look at shred, and we go to the ice fragments, you'll see that it says detonation time 4.25 seconds. And if we take out Long Fuse, it goes down to bink. It goes down to 2.5 seconds. So we can get more fragments on the screen at one time before we pull them with Cross Slash, which is actually really useful. Overall, Cross Slash is just an amazing support ability. It has just really good effects. You don't have to use it as a main attack. You don't have to use it as your main ability, but you do want to use it, number one, to pull the mark and activate the effects, especially on bosses and things like that. This is something that you have to consider. If you're using Freezing Mark or you're using any of the marks, it's sometimes difficult to activate those marks on a boss because you have to freeze the boss for Freezing Mark, right? Well, if you can activate the mark anytime you want to with Cross Slash, then it's really just a matter of casting the mark and then cross slashing so you can get whatever the benefit is. In the case of Freezing Mark, you get the 30% increased damage buff, which is really nice. And that's actually an amazing damage bonus that you can get for your character. It's just 30% more cold damage on top of all your other bonuses. And then on top of that, you can also, of course, use Cross Slash to focus all your ice fragments. Now, there are two ways to do the ice fragments, and Cross Slash is not always necessary for both. The long detonation version, I think, does need cross slash. But if you go with a regular detonation version and you just go for like attack speed and things like that to try and get as many fragments as you can, you don't necessarily need cross slash for that. So it becomes kind of up in the air whether you want to use it. You can also apply the marks in various ways for cross slash. So there's a couple different ways to apply marks. You can of course cast them yourself. You can use Pounce. There's also, I believe, like Hand of Chayula and a bunch of other abilities that can allow you to apply marks. Yes, Hand of Chayula will apply a mark that's socketed into the ability as well. Pounce will allow you to apply a mark. And I think there was one other way that you could apply marks, but I can't remember. But for the most part, you know, like cast the mark, consume the mark, make the ice fragments, consume the ice fragments, right? I think that's pretty much it. You could potentially throw this on a swap, something that we could talk about. So if you were any character, like a melee character, maybe you're running spear or mace, or you're running a bow or whatever, it's not necessarily impossible for you to have a talisman on swap, specifically for the purpose of just simply casting a mark and pulling it. Like, for instance, if you want frenzy charges, you could have a frenzy charge swap, right? So you could just simply cast the mark and boom, cross slash, and then you get your frenzy charge immediately, as opposed to having to wait for combat frenzy, freezes, or whatever other effects. You can also use it to just simply stack damage. As we've shown before, when you're looking at the marks have a considerable amount of damage that they can give you. So if you look at Voltaic mark, it's 30% gain as lightning. If you're looking at Bloodhound mark, it's Freezing mark, it's 30% gain as cold. And then I believe there's one more that gives gain as... I'm trying to remember which one. Of course, Sniper's mark gives critical hit damage bonus, which is actually really good as well. So, for instance, if you were to utilize, say, Voltaic mark, Freezing mark, and Sniper's mark, just casting all three of them, essentially, like, and then cast 1, 2, 3, and then cross slash, you would pull all three marks at the same time. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure that there's a limit. Yeah, there's a limit to the total number of marked targets. So you might not be able to mark the same target multiple times. Yeah. I wonder if there's any way you can increase the number of marked targets. Could be an interesting thing to look at. Let's take a quick look at what the Gemling Legionnaire special bonuses are for those abilities. So I do have a up here already. So let's just type in mark. So Sniper's mark, marked enemies deal 0 to 10% less damage, so a debuff. Bloodhound mark deals 0 to 20% more physical damage. Freezing mark, reduced mana cost, and Voltaic mark also reduced mana cost. And then we can also look up, of course, our main ability, which is Cross Slash, which is the one that we're talking about. Cross Slash converts 40% of physical damage to cold. Interesting. So that one allows you to convert 40% of your physical damage from Cross Slash into cold damage. That is, of course, in combination with the regular effect, which I think shows on here. What? Where is the regular quality bonus? I just go into the game and look at it. It's easier that way. So 0.4 meters to gouge width, which is of course good for hitting the same target with the same both gouges to apply the mark bonus. It's a really good combination effect. So if you're wondering like of what the combination of the effect is that you're going to be doing, it's essentially this. So cross slash is generally either pounce to cross slash, which of course allows you to complete the mark, which is really easy. Or you could of course regularly cast the mark, but honestly Pounce is just way better. And then you can also use Shred. Well, actually it's usually Lunar Assault to freeze. Then it's Shred to create the fragments. And then it's cross slash to explode the fragments, right? So basically you get like a combination of effects here going on, like with the way that it functions. If you utilize cross slash in the way that they kind of like want you to use it, you're basically freezing the target with Lunar Assault, shredding the target to get the fragments, and then cross slashing to cause the fragments to explode. And then the pounce, you're pouncing and then cross slashing to complete the mark, whatever the mark is. If you don't put a mark in pounce, it's just the default wolf mark, so you get a wolf every single time you cross slash, which is it's actually good for bosses and stuff because it's kind of hard to keep the pounce wolves active if you're running a minion build without cross slash, because you can't really fulfill the condition. The condition of the mark for pounce is actually killing a target, if I remember correctly. Let's see here. Predator's mark will be triggered targeting the highest rare enemy hits, or mark gem is socketed into the skill. Using this skill allows wolf minions to leap immediately. Where is the trigger bonus? Predator's mark. There we go. Mark a target, causing it to increase damage, and on how many of the target enemies are near to it. If the target dies, so death, the mark will activate the trigger and summon a wolf. So you actually have to kill something for this to work, which makes it so that cross slash is pretty much mandatory for pounce if you want to activate the wolves. As always, do appreciate you guys and gals joining. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. If you have any questions on cross slash, I'll try to answer them. And as always, keep watching.